Hi everybody, John here again, and hi Richard McCook. So this is going to be my entry into Richard McCook's third year contest of being in the vinyl community. Well done, Richard. Had a great impact on us all, I think, it's fair to say. And well, sit back and enjoy my entry to your contest. Now, Richard asked us to show, or to pick 3 artists and show their best and their worst album. Now, yeah, that's I guess he means, you know, according to us. So I don't mean to offend anybody or anything like that, but you know, these are my views and opinions. So yeah, don't write in, don't complain, don't send me any hate mail. Right, so the first one I'm going to show is Tin Machine. Thought I'd start off in an area that Richard McCook is, you know, very well informed about. So this was an incredible album when it came out. I mean, it's still very good. I don't play it very much these days. Kind of played it to death when it came out because it was so, for me, it was so groundbreaking, and it was certainly very, very different from what, you know, David Bowie was doing at the time and what he'd done up until this point. And yeah, this album, it really does, you know, rock. It really kicks ass. Brilliant record. So I would say that this is the best Tin Machine album. Now, the next one I'm going to show is the follow-up, Tin Machine 2, and this really, you know, let the side down. It wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one. The first one was really sort of warts and all, and they went that extra mile to really crank up the velocity and the power of what they were doing. This one seems almost like you know, like they're sort of filling some sort of obligation. They've got to follow up and do a next record, sort of bash it out, get out of the way. I don't have the live one, Hey Baby, on vinyl, got it on CD. I'd say that's even worse. I mean, there's so much potential in that album to be really, really good and, you know, really vibrant and everything, but it just, for me, it just sounds so, you know, mundane. But there you go. So this, I think, is the worst studio album by Tin Machine. Next, I'm going to take a trip to Ireland. So here we've got Thin Lizzie. This is their second from last album, Renegade. It's the one, well, it's the second one with Snowy White playing on it. Now, Snowy White, I don't know, I think he's a good guitarist, but for whatever reason he wasn't very popular with the Thin Lizzy fans. But I always hold this one up as for me, it's their best album. It's the one that's most fluent. It's the one where every single track is really, really good. I don't think there's not a bad track on here. And I mean, after this, they did the Thunder and Lightning, which was a real sort of, you know, a deliberate attempt, I think, to set a foot into the, you know, the relatively new at the time, new wave of British heavy metal. It was really sort of stretching out almost to become a thrash album in some places. But this, they're still sort of very much a hard rock band, and the songs have just got so much sort of clout in them. Really well written music, well written songs, and it's just a brilliant record. I really like this, but it doesn't get much attention. People seldom think of this as being, you know, a typical Thin Lizzy album, which I think is a real shame. For the one that I feel is the weakest record, this is Nightlife. It's the first album they made with this sort of classic lineup. Before this, it was Eric Bell on guitars and Brian Downey on drums. Here they've got Scott Gorham and the Scottish guy, what's his name, Robertson, Robbie, I can't remember his name. But you'd think, well, you know, this is their classic lineup, it's going to be really, really good, but it's not. It's like they hadn't really found their feet yet in this lineup. And after, you know, the Vagabonds of the Western World, which is a really top-notch record, this really, for me, it really sort of falls flat. Also, I think as well, I've read up recently that in this there's almost an attempt to sort of soften their rock style a little bit, so sort of become more of an AOR type sort of sounding band. And for me, it doesn't really work. I'm sure this album is very good, but I've never really found much of enjoyment in it. Maybe I just need to play it more, but there you go. For me, that's the weakest Thin Lizzy album. Now, it's a very big band, Genesis, selling England by the pound. Possibly their best album, I think. It's certainly regarded that a lot of people that like progressive rock music. Personally, I feel that all of their early albums are really good. This one is particularly very good. I remember the day when I got this on CD and sitting in the car listening to it on the way into from Essex into London. I think I was even going for a job interview, and yeah, I really enjoyed the music, and it really sort of carried me. It's a brilliant record. Give it a try. It's yeah, I think it's sort of probably the pinnacle of them before they started to sort of gradually start to fall to pieces. So there you go. And the one that I'm going to hold up as the worst, I don't know if it's the worst, it's the worst one that I have possibly, or the one after this maybe. But this is for me, yeah, where they stopped being Genesis, the band that I was familiar with. I mean, by this, of course, Peter Gabriel left, and so had Steve Hackett. But also, this is really where they become more sort of a radio hits band. They'd done a few sort of commercial sounding records before this, but this is really where they stopped, for me, where they stopped being a prog band completely. So yeah, nasty. I've got the one that came after this with the hand on it. I don't think I've ever played that one, or this one, to be honest with you, all the way through. I maybe sort of put it on just to test. Does it sound different now? But it never does, and I really don't enjoy them. So that's what I'm holding up as the worst album by Genesis. Now, next question. Show 3 albums you have on CD but would love to have on vinyl, or vice versa. Okay, the first one I'm going to show is, here's a good one. So this is Rock Ferry by Duffy. Duffy comes from Wales. This came out in 2008 or 28, the year that my first son was born. Mercy was a really big hit, and I lived in Sweden at the time. Never had any idea that I'd ever be moving to Wales, and of course she's a very proud Welsh artist. I had this on CD. Actually, it's my wife got it first of all, and we quite enjoyed listening to it in the car. Really good album. And since moving to Wales, you see this CD everywhere in charity shops. I mean, it's like the whole of Wales must have bought this album, listened to it, and then just given it away when I don't know, well, they started listening to MP3 files, I suppose. And there's 2 versions. There's the sort of the first album version, just one single CD, and then there's this one, which is the deluxe edition. It comes with 2 discs, and the second disc is 8 tracks long, and the material on the second disc is at least as good as, and is many places better than what's on the actual album. That's my opinion. But you can only get the single album on vinyl. You can't, for whatever reason, this deluxe edition has never been released on vinyl. Don't know why. I've only just recently learned that, because I always keep an eye out for this on vinyl in the charity shops here in Wales. If I went out today, I'd probably be able to come back with 5 or 6 copies of this easily on CD, and each one would have cost me something like 50 pence. You never see it on vinyl, and you certainly never ever see this one, this deluxe edition on vinyl, which is a real shame because it's a fantastic album. So that's one. Next I'm going to show is this. This is Baby Animals. They are an Australian rock band. I first heard of them when they did I think they did a session on the Friday Night Rock Show back in the 90s. You know, the Friday Night Rock Show was Tommy Vance hosting the sort of hard rock and heavy metal program. Now they're a hard rock band, not really metal, but they're certainly hard rock, and they've got a female vocalist. And she's got a really good rocking sort of husky kind of voice, very powerful, and she's got a lot of attitude, and I really like it. And their songs are pretty good too. And they did, I think, 2 or 3 live tracks on that Radio 1 show, Tommy Vance. And yeah, back in the day when you used to record these things off the radio. And that's how I knew the name. And then once, many years later, I moved to Sweden. I picked this one up. I saw it in the shops, I think, and picked it up because I recognised the name, and yeah, I've always enjoyed it. Because they're an Australian band, most of their releases have been in Australia, and very few of them actually been released in Europe, and I don't think they've had a proper release in the UK. But I would love to get this album on vinyl. Look on Discogs, and of course you can find it for sale in Australia, but then you've got to pay the packaging fee to have it sent over, and all of a sudden it becomes very expensive, which I think is a real shame. I'd love to get a vinyl copy of this album that I can afford. And the last one of these that I'm going to show is Jeff Beck. So this is one of those 2 for CDs. One of my recent videos I showed this album that I got recently, really good album, and what I would like to get hold of is the first one. So first one was called Truth, the next one is called Beckola. I'd like to get hold of Truth. I don't see it around. I don't see this one very much, but I did find it. I think I've actually got 2 copies of it now, but I'd like to get a copy of this one. So it's essentially really where Jeff Beck sort of releases an album, and he invites Ronnie Wood to play bass, and Rod Stewart to sing, and it must be sort of some of their earliest work actually. I'd really like to get hold of that. Don't see it around, but when I do, I'll grab it. So there you go. That's my 3rd one of those. Now, 3rd question. Show you 3 artists where the best of is all you need. Now, this could be highly controversial, obviously. Again, this is just my thoughts and feelings, and at the end of the day, I'm answering a contest, so again, no hate mail, please. I'm going to go for a controversial one right up front, and I will say George Harrison. This is a really, really good best of album. It's got a lot of great tracks on it, and it flows very nicely. And it's even got some Beatles tracks on here, of course, because he wrote Taxman, he wrote something. Here Comes the Sun, for instance, like that. While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But it's also got My Sweet Lord, for instance, and What Is Life. In terms of his solo music after the Beatles, I've never really been such a huge fan. There's a few tracks of his that I like, and they kind of appear here. But when I listen to his solo music, especially those ones that he released after the Beatles, they don't really resonate with me. I listen to them and feel that I would probably enjoy much more listening to the Beatles, for instance. In a similar vein, I would say the same about John Lennon. Paul McCartney, on the other hand, I think he's made some very good sort of records post the Beatles and solo stuff, but well, I don't think the others did really such great stuff, particularly George Harrison. Now, I know for a fact that Richard is a big fan of Showaddy Waddy, and I would go so far as to say that maybe the best of Showaddy Waddy would be the only one you really need, but I don't have one. But close to that, I'm going to hold up this. This is Mud. Now, Mud, they're a band I like their sort of style and attitude. I mean, visually they look a little bit like Showaddy Waddy with the sort of the teddy boy clothes, and yeah, they were sort of big at the same time, roughly, weren't they? Sort of the glam rock era. And I've got 2 or 3 Mud albums, and really the only stuff that I really want to hear by them is their big hits. Now, this album is so good, it collects pretty much all of the best stuff that they did. The hits, Tiger Feet, what else we got? Moonshine Sally, Hypnosis, Dynamite, Rocket, The Cat Crept In. You know, it's all here, and it's really, really good. Fun and rocky music. And I always like to point out that this must have had a huge effect on the sound of punk when it finally sort of kicked in, because it's got quite a raucous tone to it. Great stuff. So if I was going to choose, I'd choose this over any of their studio albums. The last record I'm going to show here as a compilation is All You Need is this one. A little bit of a fun thing here. I'm going to say this is The Exciting Years, Ray Charles' The Exciting Years, compilation of his exciting years. I would recommend everybody to stay away from Ray Charles' Unexciting Years, because it's really not very much fun. So that completes my records. Okay, everybody, thanks very much for watching. I hope this answered all your questions, Richard, and good luck to everybody else in the contest. Thanks very much. I'll see you again soon. Check out my next video. Bye.